Hi, I'm Carl Taylor from visualeducation.com. In this week's lighting modifier series video, we're looking at the mighty Para 222. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, oh no, there's no way I'm ever gonna need to know about this particular lighting modifier. It's too expensive, it's too big, it's out of my league. Well, don't run away because there's a lot of great information coming on this. First of all, yes, this is an expensive modifier. It's probably around about $6,000, but you can actually rent this modifier for about $100 for a day. So it doesn't mean that you can't get your hands on one of these modifiers, especially if you're in a major city that's got rental houses. They usually have this modifier because it's widely used. I'm going to give you all the details about what this modifier is used for, why it's so special, and the incredible lighting look that it gives, and some of the technical aspects of it as well. First of all, let's start off with the size. It's called the Para 222. The 222 relates to its dimension. It's actually 222 centimeters across, as you can see there. And we've already looked at some of the other Paras in the range, the 88 and the 133. This is a different beast because it's humongous. They actually used to do a 3.3, can you believe it, as well at one point. I don't think they do that anymore. First of all, let's look at it from the side, because I think you're going to be quite surprised when you see this, when you actually look at how deep it is. This is an extremely deep modifier as well, and that goes down to the physics. Remember when we've spoken about parabolic reflectors? For it to be a true parabolic reflector, it has to be a parabola. And this has got the absolute perfect shape for parabolic lighting. So you can see that extreme depth. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not far off the actual size and depth. Oh, actually no, it's about 150, 160 deep compared to the 222 wide. Let's look at some of the specifics of how it works, and then I'm going to show you the lighting results that it gives and some of the examples where I'd use it. This rod here is nothing to do with its control other than to hold it so that when you undo it and you want to lever it, it just gives you that ability to lever it more easily rather than doing it from the focusing rod. You do need a fairly heavy duty stand to put these on. So if you're renting one of these, you'll also be renting one of the stands, and then you lock it in the position accordingly. That particular position here is that's where the modifier itself fits into the lighting stand. So there's nothing else needed for that. And then this rod screws into that fitting so that you can just lever it as I've shown. This handle here is just to pack it up and fold it up. These particular Para 222s are used on location and can be folded up and put into a box. We've used them on location many times. They fold away quite compact actually, because they sort of fold back on themselves, and then they'll fit into a relatively decent sized box, even suitable for transport and travel, which means you can actually use them on location. You do need to be careful though, because they can catch the wind. We've been caught out with this using it on location where you get a bit of a breeze and you have to let the thing spin, otherwise you're going to take off with it. The other main feature of the Para is of course the focusing rod, and that's here, and you've got markers on it that detail the distance that you have got the rod set to if you need to make a particular mental note on that. However, when using the focus rod, basically you're changing the position of the light inside, which we're going to look at, and that can give you a completely different lighting look. But of course you could make a note, oh, I used it at position number 4 and it was perfect, but it's only relative to the distance the subject is away from the light as well. So you've got to keep that in mind too. So I'm going to put it in its defocus position. That's where the light is further away. We're going to take a look at that first, and then I'm going to show you how the light changes and the looks that you get. So at the moment, what you guys should see in the defocus position now, if you're at the right distance, you should be seeing the illumination here, here, here. In each one of these 24 petals, you should be seeing that peripheral illumination with less illumination inside, almost dark inside by comparison. There is still some light coming out from there, but a far greater amount of lighting coming from that periphery. Now that means that if you can see that, you're in the position where the subject or the model would be placed, because that's the perfect position for the defocused lighting. And that means that that lighting is coming in at an angle from here, from here, from here. And that's giving you a very three-dimensional sculpting of light on the model's face, on the textures of fabrics, textiles. And this light is perfectly suited for beauty and fashion. That's where it's used predominantly. Now, we mentioned that already with the Para 133, but the difference is, of course, size. When we increase the size of the light, we also get softness. So we're getting this sort of paradoxical effect with this light, where we're getting this beautiful contrast and bite from this three-dimensional sculpting, but we're also getting a softness from the physical size of the light as well. Again, because of its size, this light is used more for full-length fashion or three-quarter length fashion rather than close-up headshots. If you were going to do headshot sort of beauty or fashion work like this, you're probably going to be using the Para 133 or maybe even the 177. But more for full-length or three-quarter length, you're coming into the realms of the 222. Now, additionally, we have got a lot more versatility with the lighting as well. We can go into a much harder lighting position. I'm going to pull the focusing rod in, and you will see a change in intensity, a change in positions of where the light gets illuminated, and that gives us a completely different effect of lighting as well. So if I pull that rod backwards slowly, you can see now I'm at position 2, position 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, right into the highest point there, and it would have got tremendously brighter when it came into that point now, and it gives you a really good sunlight effect, very hard light, but actually it's still quite big. And you can find these positions as well sort of in between, where probably if I bring it out to position 4 or 5, where somewhere around there we get a bit of everything illuminated. We get more of the center illuminated and some of the sides illuminated as well. And that can give us another whole new look and level of lighting. Now, we'll be bringing up some examples, images here that I've shot with the Para 222. We've used it in a number of lighting situations, as I say, especially for fashion, predominantly beauty fashion stuff. The light is suited for fashion because of the three-dimensionality of the sculpting. Also what it does to fabrics, textures, textiles, that sort of thing. It gives a crispness, a texture and a level of detail for a very large light that you just wouldn't get with a huge large softbox or a huge big scrim. This gives you something very, very unique. Now, of course, for it to work, it has to follow the physics. It has to be a true parabola. And that's why it's so expensive to construct it, because as you saw from the side view earlier, it has to be built in a very special way, a very special shape. It also has to be collapsible and then, you know, be able to put back up again and multiple times, etc., etc. And it's got to hold its shape, and that's why it's an expensive modifier. However, as I pointed out, you can rent it for less than $100 a day. So it is available for people to use. Other interesting little things with it as well, diffusers. If you want to double it up, you've got this huge diffuser which fits over the prongs that you see sticking out here. And I'm not going to go obviously the whole way around because I have to get the ladder out to do it. But you can see you can create probably the biggest softbox you're ever going to see by using the diffusion cover. And when you use the light in its sort of mid position, where you're illuminating most of the center and some of the outside, then essentially you get quite a uniform diffusion to give you this beautiful, beautiful big soft light. Or you can create a centric light that gradates away by putting the light deep inside and using it with the diffusion as well. So there's, you know, a few tricks you can use in sort of combination with the diffusion that can give you some really beautiful looks as well. Now, I admit it is a more specialist light. You are going to have to be into beauty and fashion work specifically for this to really come into its own. It could be used for portraiture as well, because as I said, it does give a really nice sculpting, but it would be a lot of money to invest in a light purely just for portraiture. The other thing to consider, of course, is the space. This is 2.2 meters across, and obviously it's off the floor there somewhat, so you can imagine the sort of studio size you need to keep this in, or to have it open all the time, and the sort of ceiling height that you need to deal with as well. I have seen photographers use this in unusual ways, actually hanging it from the ceiling, pointing down for shooting models lying on the floor. We also use it at a slight side angle, because if you get it at a side angle, you can actually bounce light just into one side, and you can get a sort of crescent of light down one side, and then you can basically photograph your model sideways with it. We've used that technique as well. But predominantly you're using it shining straight at your model. So essentially where the cameraman is filming from is where the subject would be standing, and the photographer actually stands here. So the photographer sort of streamlines themselves, gets in position and is shooting from in front of them, and the light is wrapping around. And that's more relevant when it's in the defocus position, because when you're here, you're not really blocking anything other than maybe one or two petals here. The rest of the periphery of the lighting is still functioning perfectly well. So it's quite an interesting light from a photographer's point of view, that you're actually stood in front of it for you to get the best view, because then it's pointing directly at the model to give that unique lighting look. Now, we have got this lighting modifier in our comparison lighting app over on visualeducation.com. Let's take a look at some of those comparisons. So here on the left in our comparison app, this is our app where you can choose different modifiers that you want to compare one against the other to see what they look like. This is over on our website, visualeducation.com. And over on the left here, I've just got a bare bulb studio light. Nothing else. Bare bulb, it's as simple as you can get, just a bare bulb studio light. And then on the right, the Para 222. So here we have the Para 222 in the hard light position. Now it's interesting because the one on the left is just a bare bulb, which is obviously a very hard point light source. But the one on the right, you can see that softening effect that the Para is giving even in the hard light position. Let's just zoom in and look at the result on the skin texture and the look of the light in the eyes, and the way that light is filling in the sort of pores on the skin really nicely. But generally you don't use it in the hard position. You'd want to be using it in the mid or soft position. If we go to the mid position and I zoom in on the mid position lighting, you can see how much more flattering that has become on the skin. You can also see, if you look really closely, you can see the reflection in the eyes, and you can actually see me stood in front of the Para as described earlier. You'll also notice that in the mid position, you can see that generally the whole Para is illuminated on the inside, but it's still illuminated in these little individual petals, these individual sort of hard light sources. But look how flattering it is on the skin. It's literally removing any sort of flaw in the skin by the way that it just evens out that texture with that very front directional light. That's in the mid position. If we go into the soft position, the defocus position, you can see it's doing that even to greater effect. So it has this very flattering look to the light that emanates out from it. There it is back in the zoomed out position where we can see the whole model. Also, when we go into full length body on either of these, you can see the sort of look that it's giving there. Very flattering light in the pulled out defocus soft position. Then in the mid position, that light gets a little bit harder. as you can see there, still crisp though, beautiful for fashion and texture. And then in the hard position, that bitingly hard, striking light shown as well there. So very, very versatile lighting modifier in all that it can do, predominantly for fashion, for beauty. But of course, if you use that outer diffusion attachment, you can turn this into a humongous, soft, very soft, large softbox flattering light as well. Hope you enjoyed this information on the Para 222. If you did, click the subscribe, give us a like, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.